Hello, and welcome to Balance and Bottom Lines with Rebecca. Today's episode is focused on autoimmune. Joining us today is Celia. Celia has a background in sports medicine and holistic nutrition through the National Agency of Sports Medicine and Functional Nutrition Alliance. Welcome, Celia.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be on, Rebecca.
I'm very excited to hear and share Celia's journey. I've followed Celia for a long time on social media, and she's very knowledgeable about her journey and authentic, which I absolutely love about her.
Yeah.
I, I believe most people have heard the term autoimmune, but may not be aware of what autoimmune disease is. Or possibly you have a family member or a friend who has had an autoimmune disease. 10% of the population in the world has been diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. So let's define autoimmune. Your immune system is made up of organs and cells meant to protect your body from bacteria, parasites, viruses, and cancer cells. An autoimmune disease is a result of immune system accidentally attacking your body instead of protecting it. It's unclear why your immune system does this. There are over 100 known autoimmune diseases. Common ones include lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, Crohn's disease, and ulcerative colitis. Autoimmune disease can affect many types of tissues and nearly any organ in your body. They may cause a variety of symptoms, including pain, fatigue, rashes, nausea, headaches, dizziness, and more. Specific symptoms depend on the exact disease. Let's think about this. Imagine your body is a castle, and your immune system is an army fighting off invaders like bacteria. If your army malfunctions and attacks the castle, ultimately that is going to have some major impacts on your body. Celia, do you mind sharing your personal journey with autoimmune and how it has impacted your life?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess growing up, I was never like super healthy. Like I always had digestive issues growing up. I would eat stuff and my stomach would swell. I wouldn't feel good. It was classic typical bloating. Had, just issues with focusing, which now they call ADHD.
Yeah.
Just tons of things growing up as a kid that I didn't quite put the pieces together. And back then, autoimmune was a very under-researched thing. Like, people didn't really know much about it. Went to the doctor a ton of times. My parents called me a hypochondriac. They're like, you're fine. Like, you just want attention. Turns out I had severe celiac and went on to later have a lupus diagnosis. So my body was, in fact, malfunctioning. And I played sports in high school, always felt fatigued, never recovered fully, bruising, swelling, all of that stuff. So, anyways, fast forward to my 20s. I got into the bodybuilding world at a very young age. So I worked in sports medicine. I worked as a first in GNCs and stores like that. And then I got into the bodybuilding world. And so I was eating a diet that was extraordinarily clean. It was mainly vegetables and chicken breast. That's what I lived on. I literally just ate vegetables and chicken breast. And I was the healthiest I'd ever been. Like, I felt superhuman. I was invincible. Literally had no symptoms of digestive issues, nothing. And I ate this way until about 24, 25, where I kind of went off the diet, and I distinctly remember having bloating, issues with digestion, and that all coming back. And so I ended up going on a vegan diet when I was 26, and that eventually led to my entire immune system completely collapsing. And by 28, I remember the day so well. I was having vertigo, which is, if you've never experienced it, I hope you never have to experience it. It's literally where the room spins and it doesn't stop. So you feel super dizzy, like you're on a boat and it's just, or like a swing and someone's spinning you like this and you can't gain your balance. I remember I couldn't even walk down the hallway without holding onto the wall for support. Um, and that was the beginning of my severe autoimmune journey, where I went to specialist after specialist, blood work after blood work. I was in and out of doctors. Everyone said your blood work's, fine. It's within range. It was not. Like looking back at my blood work, it was awful. My vitamin D was at like 15. My entire body was falling apart. My B vitamins were so low. Like I'm surprised that doctors didn't catch how bad, how bad of health I was in. So anyways, I went on a journey. I was bedridden for a while and went on this journey of watching YouTubes, researching everything I could online. I went back to school to FX Alliance and I got my certificate in holistic nutrition, which did absolutely nothing for me. In fact, it made me worse. But we'll get into that later, I'm sure. But anyways, I went back to school for all of that stuff and studied every waking hour I was awake. I was studying how I could not die. Like, how could I get better? Because my condition ended up getting so severe that I became suicidal. I could not live another day in the body and the mind that I was trapped in. My body was failing me. I couldn't even pick things up anymore. I was just dropping things. My muscles were completely useless. I couldn't feel my legs most of the time, couldn't walk. And it was very heartbreaking. And so leading to where I am now, that is why I'm so passionate about this, because the suffering that I had gone through for 5.5 years, no human should have to go through that. Like it makes me want to cry thinking about how devastating and how much that impacted not just me, but everyone around me. I tried to stay strong for everyone around me, but inside I was falling apart. It was a very dark time.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds terrifying. I mean, as a child, just entering into that journey of, something's off and everybody keeps telling you you're fine, you're fine. You're just wanting attention. That's, my heart goes out to that. I can't imagine, how that must have felt. And we know our bodies well. We know when something's not right. So I'm glad that were an advocate for your health. You started doing your own research, which I think that's wonderful. So if you are listening and you are going through something, maybe hopefully this podcast can help you. But doing your own research, if something feels off, not just listening to the doctor. I will preface this with I'm not saying don't follow your doctor's plan. I am not a doctor, but do your research, be your advocate. Um, make sure that you're questioning your doctor. Go in with a list of questions. What's working? What's not working? Journal how you're feeling on a day-to-day basis. When you eat certain foods, how does that make you feel? Some of the symptoms that Celia just shared that she went through, making sure that you are notating that. Is there a certain time of day these things are coming up and you're feeling that way? I know you've shared a little bit of how it has impacted your life. How do you feel like autoimmune has changed your perspective on health and
I
wellness?
want to add to what you were saying because it's really important. I think it's really important what you were saying, keeping track of everything. I kept meticulous track of every single thing. I have all the data of every single thing, my sleep for the past 5 years, everything. And my doctors love me because when I go in, they know exactly, like I'm so well read up on this and I keep track of things down to the date, time, everything that they were like, wow, no one does this. So if you are dealing with this, I will tell you it makes the doctor's life so much easier to have that data that you can bring in. They will love you for that. It will help them so much in helping you. So I always say this because I'm a huge proponent of being a collaborator with your doctor, right? I think doctors are doing the best they can. However, I will say this, they do not have degrees in nutrition at all. Most of them don't. Some do. I will say some of them are great and they do, but the majority do not. The majority cannot give you advice outside of the guidelines or else they risk legal action. So they're not going to tell you holistic remedies. They're not going to tell you anything else because that goes against medical guidelines. So really you need to be a collaborator with your doctor and go in and say, hey, I'm thinking about trying this out, or hey, I'm thinking about doing this way of eating, or hey, I'm thinking about switching this up. What do you think about that? And getting that feedback. So I'm a huge advocate of working with your doctors. I don't think doctors are bad or evil, which a lot of people in this world do because they've been wronged by doctors, which I've definitely been there too. But the truth is, I'm married to a doctor, and he comes to me for holistic advice all the time because that's my jam, that's my field. And just for the record, like I was able to put my autoimmune in remission using just nutrition. I am not on any medications. I've never been on medications except for I was on Lexapro for a brief stint back in 2020 when my symptoms were so bad and my mental health had gotten so bad. But aside from that, I've never taken anything. I was prescribed hydrochloroquine for lupus, but I never went on the medication because I wanted to heal my body naturally. And everyone's going to have that choice, right? So whether you go the medicine route, which can absolutely be life changing and saving, or whether you decide to go the holistic route or you do a remedy of both because you can't quite get to, especially with anything mental illness or anything very serious, you want to make sure you're doing a collaboration between both doctors. Never, ever, ever just stop something cold turkey or never, ever, quit on something because you don't understand or like always work with your medical team. So I'll just say that to premise this because I know a lot of people who are in this world are struggling and it's hard and it's emotional and it's not an easy journey. I mean, there's a reason why people say this is like survivors and fighters and, they say like lupus warriors and things like that because it's a very hard thing to deal with. It's a very hard thing to live with. And if you're living with this, I just want to say, and I want you to like really acknowledge how strong you are and brave you are to even be going through something so traumatic and to show up every day and to be listening to things like this that could potentially help you a lot. So, Rebecca, I think that's an awesome topic that you have here. And like, it's very needed. I mean, I know you said that the autoimmune rates are 10%, but I actually think that it's a lot higher than that. Chronic illness has become the number one burden on the healthcare society. And as a whole, people are struggling and they have no relief. And it's a very scary thing. So, I'm glad that you're putting this information out there. I think it's really important. And I totally forgot what the question you just asked was because we went on this little rant. So if you want to ask it again.
Well, you kind of answered your perspective on health and wellness, actually. You mentioned that you're married to a doctor and he comes to you for some of the holistic tips, which I think is phenomenal. And I think that makes him probably a better doctor than others because he is thinking outside of that box that they tend to have to stay in.
Mhm.
And they're super educated people, but you can't know everything. Um, and I love too, I can say, my doctor, she is very much an advocate of, let's pull this out of your diet. She can actually have that conversation, which is super, super helpful if you have a doctor like that that's willing to, well, let's change this up and see if it works. Maybe that's what's causing some inflammation. Recently, actually, last week, before I went to a doctor's visit, I said, I'm going to pull out gluten out of my diet. And, I feel like I've always tolerated gluten, but I said, let me pull it out. I'm also going to pull out dairy. But I do want to keep my calories high, but I incorporate a little bit more protein and fat. And I feel good eating that way. I felt amazing since I've removed the gluten. It's just not something that's good for us. But she was a big advocate. She's like, yes, let's pull it out. Let's see how your body reacts. Because too off and on throughout the years, especially now, I'm in more of that perimenopausal state. So, balancing insulin levels, anything that's inflammatory, your body just has a hard time. Alcohol is another thing. It's a toxin. And so I just have eliminated those things to feel better. Now, I'm not faced with things that Celia is speaking about today, but I know I've followed you for a while and you've changed, you mentioned diet. What have you found? Is there a particular diet that works for you or a lifestyle change that's helped you manage your symptoms?
Um, so I know that this is very unconventional, and probably a lot of people listening to this are probably gonna think I'm weird, like very weird, but I don't eat anything aside from ruminant animals, and I'll get into what that is. butter, salt, and water, and that's it. So I do beef. I do eggs as well, and I do a little bit of raw cheese here and there, but my diet is very dialed in. I eat the same thing almost every single day. And that is how I live my life. And that is what the only way, basically, that is the only way that I can stay um symptom free. The other day, it was 2 days ago, I had a Starbucks drink and I'm still paying for it. I had vertigo so bad that day. It was like it hit me and it was just like awful. So like for me, the only way I can stay symptom free is by avoiding all plant matter. So I eat absolutely zero vegetables, zero plants, zero anything. No lectins, no phytates, no oxalates, none of that. And I just stick with animal matter. And it's been the best thing for me. I mean, everything got better. My acne went away, zero autoimmune issues, hair's growing in great. Everyone's like, you're reversing your age, like you look younger. I barely work out and I have the body in my dreams. It's like the craziest, it's literally the craziest thing ever, but it makes sense because it's our primal diet. So it's the diet that we evolved on, really, truly.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I can attest that I feel amazing. Everybody has to find out what works for them. But I feel amazing. I eat steak multiple times a week. Grass-fed butter is what I usually will use. And man, it's so good. But
There's
yeah,
nothing
lots of,
better.
yes, yes. Now, you mentioned you just drink water and you mentioned salts, which I'm a huge, huge fan of. Hydration is very, very important, one of the most important things. Have you eliminated caffeine from your diet?
Yes. So that's here's the thing is that caffeine's a pesticide. So a lot of people don't realize this, but every time you're consuming caffeine, and I'll have it here and there, but I definitely can tell my body does not react well with it at all. I'm extraordinarily sensitive to everything. So, like you said, everyone's different. Some people can tolerate more of it, but just knowing my whole thing is my education to my platform is I like to give the actual what this does to your body, what's this doing in your body, and then you can do with it what you want. So if caffeine is something you enjoy, by all means, like I still like caffeine every now and then, but I know that I'm going to pay for it later. But caffeine is a pesticide. It is I mean, it changes the way that you think. And when you think about that, you take in caffeine and it gives you that kind of wired feeling. It's a chemical response in your body. So that always comes with a consequence. So for me, I just know that caffeine, like I love it. I love what it does on the energetic level, but at the same time, it's not worth it always to me in the way that my body responds to it. So caffeine is something that I had to work really hard to eliminate. And it's something that I'll probably completely take out of my diet forever.
Yeah, that makes sense. I have transitioned over to organic coffee and really started paying attention to that. And for a while, I had cut caffeine out because um, certain times throughout my life, I feel like it irritates my stomach. So maybe that speaks to some of the things that you're mentioning. But right now, I can seem to tolerate a very small amount in the morning, and I do love it. So that would be my doctor did want me to break up with that too, and I was like, I'll break up with everything else, but I'm going to hold off on that one for now. We all have a vice, right?
I think a lot of people find it very hard to give up coffee. Coffee is one of those very emotional things. Like when I started talking about coffee and its effects on the body, I got so much backlash. It was like people were so upset because it's like coffee is so emotional. It's so ingrained in us that a lot of people it's a very strong, addiction. It's hard to give up. And I know I had a very hard time giving up coffee too. It's something that people just it's a tradition. It's something people love.
Yes, true. Well, I know you mentioned a little bit about your diet, and I'm sure that's contributed to your glowing, beautiful skin and your hair. So you've had some positive, not just being able to manage your symptoms, but you've had some really positive changes. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, food used to be something that I would have to think about, especially once you do get diagnosed with something like celiac, or you get diagnosed with something where you have to take food groups out of your diet. It becomes a thing where you can almost get food obsessed. Like you're like, I don't know what I'm gonna eat. You go out to eat and you don't know what to order. My life is so simple now. It is so simple. Like when I go out to eat, I order a steak with nothing on it, side of butter or a big side of butter. I'm like, just bring out all the butter you can. And some places have some really good butter. I'm telling you, there's like some really great restaurants out there. But anyways, so it makes life simpler. My life is very easy. I never have to think about what I'm gonna eat. Lately, I've been on a Five Guys kick. I'm actually filming for YouTube. The fact that I've eaten Five Guys every single day, like the triple bacon cheeseburger every single day for the last 5 days. So Five Guys, 5 days. Um, and it's without the bun. So I don't do a bun. I did do lettuce wrap, but I took that out because the lettuce does not agree with me. So I just do it in the metal container, and that's it. It's called a bowl. And it's been great because I haven't had a lot of time. So it's something that I can kind of fit into my day where it's just I do it on the app, I go pick it up at the nearest location, and that's that. Um, but yeah, like it makes everything more simple. But what I've noticed is that my brain function has gone up. I've noticed that my skin's gotten better, body's gotten insanely in shape without even trying. Like, I used to have to run all the time. I was running 3 to, like, 10 miles a day. I haven't run a single today I was supposed to run a 5K, I didn't even wanna go, but, like, I haven't run at all since I'll do sprints every now and then, but I haven't run an actual race, and I haven't done anything over a mile in since November. So I really don't do much running at all anymore. I just do kind of like a stretching workout called bar, and that's it. I used to have to lift weights all the time and I could never put on muscle. My body was always bloated. I always had like I never could see my abdomen. And now it's like I barely do anything. I don't even really work out. I don't need that much sleep anymore either. That's something else I noticed is that I'm sleeping, anywhere from 4 to sometimes 6, 7 hours a night. I'm very busy. Like this morning I was up at 2:30 in the morning. I had so much paperwork I had to get done before this, and then I have to go and do tons of moving and everything. So my days start really early. I'll start my day at like 3, 4 a.m. and get everything done, well, as much as I can get done before I have to go to work. And then, I get all my stuff done. I do a lot on social media. As you know, I'm very active on social media. But my days are very go, go, go. And so my energy levels are so consistent on this way of eating that like I never crash. I never need caffeine. Like my body just stays steady. And the biggest thing I noticed was my mood. So I had severe anxiety, severe depression, especially after having the vertigo. And I know that those two are linked because anytime you have neuroinflammation, which is extraordinarily common in autoimmune, and I will say this, all autoimmune is the same in nature. Just because it has a name on it, that's the person who found it, who found the diagnosis. So lupus is named after someone who named lupus, or Hashimoto's is a man who discovered it. It's just the organ, you're genetically susceptible to that organ getting infected or being inflamed or having issues. So when our systems are getting the fuel we need, the cellular fuel we need to rebuild our mitochondria, to rebuild the cells, when our mitochondria is happy, when our gut biome is happy, we do not need, like, our bodies run smoothly. We do not need all this defense. We don't need all this inflammation. When something goes wrong, so if we're putting material in our body that's rebuilding our cells in a way that's faulty, but it's so similar to the human anatomy, right? So the proteins are so similar to the thyroid protein, but they're not. It's not actually like the same, like it's not the correct building block. Our body will identify that as a threat and then start attacking it, which is what autoimmune is. So it's your organs, your tissues, your skin is being rebuilt with these materials, we'll say. So it's being rebuilt with these materials that are not proper materials. They're faulty materials. It's like if you were building a house. I love your castle analogy. If you're building a house and you're using instead of you're using wood, or instead of using stucco, you start using cardboard and styrofoam, your house is going to fall apart. We're doing that to our bodies every single day with the food we're consuming. And this is where I became so passionate, was no one's really talking about this. Like, it's not a widespread thing. I had to find it like deep on the interwebs. Like, there's so many people that I absolutely love in this space, like Dr. Anthony Shafee, Dr. Ken Berry. There's so many of them. I could just go on and on and on. Dr. Robert Lustig is amazing for his work. But like these doctors talk about the same thing, but not many people understand or many people know about this. And I think it needs to be more widespread because so many people are suffering and the information is just not widely available, but it's becoming more and more mainstream. So you're going to see more and more people talking about it because it's working. Like people are getting results. And it really just comes down to the building materials that we're putting in our body. When you put the correct building material in your body can build a magnificent castle that the guards will then be able to protect. The guards are going to be at peace with protecting that castle. But when you build a castle out of the styrofoam, the cardboard, and all the stuff that's in our society, which unfortunately the food in our society is just not, most of it's not even actually classified as food. It's edible substance, but it is not food. So the fact that we're building ourselves with this food-like product, it's causing a downstream chaos. Like people are getting chronically ill. Chronic illness is the number one health issue. It's the number one reason for people dying. And it can, a majority of time, like the majority of time can be prevented from what we're eating. And it's sad that this is not more widely talked about, especially me having to go through 5.5 years of what I went through. I don't wish that suffering upon anybody. It was extremely detrimental. I have PTSD from, having, one of the things I was having, I didn't talk about this, is tremors that were so bad that they thought they were seizures. I was never diagnosed with seizures because when I would go in for the seizure testing, they'd put me in MRIs, CAT scans, and then they'd put the electrodes on my head. So I'd be laying in a dark room and you have these electrodes on your head and they're running these, they're seeing what your brain waves are doing. I never had a event during that, so they weren't able to see anything on that. But when you're having these tremors where your body gives out, I was in the shower one day. I talked about this on another podcast. I was in the shower one day and my body just gave out and I started shaking uncontrollably on the floor. The water was going everywhere and I couldn't get up. I couldn't help myself. And thank God it wasn't a bathtub. Like I probably would have drowned. It was just one of those, apartment showers, but I couldn't get up. I couldn't lift myself up. It was the scariest thing. It was the worst thing. And this went on for 5.5 years. Like the fact that I had to suffer that long when really it was just the food that was doing this to me is wild that this isn't more talked about. Like this isn't something that doctors even mention because they're scared that they're going to get sued or they can't mention it. It's heartbreaking. It really is truly heartbreaking.
Yeah, that's all of that is terrifying, and my heart definitely goes out, and I'm so glad that you did the research and you're in a much better place. I would call, or I'd say you're thriving now is what it
I still
sounds
got work
like
to do.
in comparison.
I still
Yeah.
I still have work to do. So
Yeah.
there's definitely where I'm at now is I'm so grateful. Like I am so grateful to be where I'm at now and to give hope to anyone who's watching this who's in a dark spot like I was. I went from being bedridden and having those tremor episodes to then running 5Ks and winning 5Ks. I went on to place in my age group. So winning 5Ks and doing these half marathons when 2 years prior I couldn't walk. So if you are going through something right now, I just want to give you hope that things can change. They absolutely can change for you. When I was on my darkest days, what kept me going was knowing that people had gotten through this. That was the only thing that I clung to and really, really kept hope alive for me was this wasn't a death sentence for me. This wasn't my forever. Just because I couldn't walk today, just because I couldn't function today, just because I couldn't think today, doesn't mean that this is my forever. Like I will fight and claw my way out of this any way I need to. But what really kept me alive was seeing other people's stories of them getting through things like this. And so if this is you and you're going through something that's like this, I just want to extend that hope to you. I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but I'm just saying that, my story, I hope my story can give hope to people who are going through something really traumatic because there is light on the other side of the tunnel. There is hope. There's always hope. And so just keep going, just keep going and really, really try and find a supportive system or supportive team of doctors and people in your life that can really build you up on those hard days because there are a lot of hard days when it comes to autoimmune, a lot. And it's unfair and it sucks. I'm sorry, I don't know if I can cuss on here, but it does. It sucks. And so if that's you and you're going through it, like I extend my heart out to anyone who's dealing with, I mean, even if it's just something where it's a inconvenience and you still are high functioning, but it's an inconvenience, it still sucks. And so I just want you to know that you're not alone and that people have gotten through this. And that was what got me through it too.
I appreciate you sharing that, and hopefully if you're listening, take those words to heart. I think that's a really good message. I do want to kind of go back. We've talked a lot about things you've changed, but when did the doctors finally figure out she has lupus? When did that come about throughout this journey?
So my diagnosis was interesting, very interesting. I went to one of the top rheumatologists. It took me 6.5 months to get in. Went in to see him and he ran a ton of tests and he's like, yep, your blood work sucks. Like you definitely have severe autoimmune. But we can't really like diagnose it because your lupus on your face is actually like rosacea, but it's still lupus, but it's not full on lupus because lupus. So I'll tell you this: when you go in for a lupus diagnosis, if this has any redness, it's not lupus. It's so weird. So it has to be where it's like a butter. They call it the butterfly, right? Where it's red like right through here, which I had, but I also had some redness here, and on my forehead. Now, like, it makes no sense that just because there's not red or just because there's redness here, it's not. Anyway, so he was like, we're going to give you a lupus diagnosis, but this is extreme connective tissue disease. Like what you have is extreme connective tissue disease. But they didn't know what to say, so they're just like, oh, it's lupus. So this is very frustrating for a lot of people. He had to guess on what to, and this is one of the reasons why I didn't take the medication. He was like, I don't know what to give you. I don't know how to help you, but I'm going to give you hydrochloroquine because it's probably going to be beneficial. And I'm like, and he was like, if it doesn't work, come back in 6 weeks or whatever, and we can switch your medication. And I'm like, F this haphazard. You don't even know if this is going to like, so to me, my world, like my experience in that world was very chaotic. I remember showing it on Instagram. I had a packet this thick of specialists. So I went to neuro, what is it called? Neuro, where they looked at your spine. So he did a MRI of my spine. They looked at my 'cause they thought, oh, maybe she's gonna need like spinal, whatever, spinal surgery because I was having such severe back pain from all the oxalates I was eating and all the vegetables because I thought kale was amazing and spinach was amazing. I don't want to go into that fully on here, but it caused such bad spine like pain, like such severe pain that I had to go see a specialist for that. They told me just take ibuprofen if you don't want to go get surgery, like all these things, but like ibuprofen messes with your gut health. So there's like all these things that like people go through with autoimmune that's really unfortunate. But anyways, I went through this thick of doctors. I went to a heart specialist, a cardiologist for my heart because I was having racing heart. So I had an event monitor on for 7 days. I went to every single dang specialist out there. Like if there's a specialist in Orlando, they've probably seen me. Like I was laughing. There's a guy who works the front desk at a lot of these clinics. And he's friends with me on Instagram, actually. I see him all the time, like my stuff. But he was like, oh, you're back again. And I'm like, it's me. Like I was just always at the specialist. And so it was just very chaotic, I felt. And like you said early on, it's very tough to get a diagnosis. Many people spend years trying to get a diagnosis. They go to doctor after doctor after doctor and procedure after procedure after procedure. And I'll say this is that the medical testing can be wrong for a lot of things too. So blood work changes, lab work changes, and even like if you're getting an endoscopy for celiac, if they do the endoscopy and you haven't eaten enough gluten, it can show up negative when really it's a positive. So it's like there's all these nuances inside of the medical community that are you don't always get a proper diagnosis. But like I said, in the interview is that all autoimmune is the same in nature. It's some things in your body that's not agreeing with your body. It's a chronic exposure to a toxicity, and your body's now trying to fight off that toxicity. And it's just become this chronic, like, cytokine storm. It's become this chronic, elevated inflammation in the body. And so it's not always inflammation, but it's an elevated issue in the body. It's an elevated pathogen that the body has to fight off. So that's what we experience, and that's why we experience things like the headaches and the issues, is because we're having that neuroinflammation. We're having that chronic stress on the body. Our body's in fight or flight, essentially. And so it's tough. It's really hard if you're just entering this world and you've just found out that you have high ANA titers. I'm sure when you went to your doctor, they probably did the blood panel and you had certain ANA titers, homogeneous and speckled, and there's all these different kinds. And that's the beginning of your journey. That really is once they see those high ANAs, then it's off to the races, and you're going to all these different specialists, and you go to a GI doctor this week, and then you're going to a rheumatologist next week, and then you're going to an endocrine specialist, and then you're going to all these places. And endocrinology is very hard to get into. If you don't have a diagnosis and you're trying to get into, and good luck, like, it is so hard to get into endo. So I was dealing with, like, a lot of adrenal issues. I went to a functional medicine doctor, and she's like, "Oh, girl, you have, like, severe adrenal fatigue." I was also drinking energy drinks at the time, which are absolutely awful for you. But I was addicted. I gave them
Agree.
up. But it was impossible for me, even having, like, severe adrenal issues. It was impossible for me to get into an endocrinologist. So it's really tough. It's really hard. And going through the ringer with it, you get fatigued. You get a fatigue that you're already fatigued because you have autoimmune, and then you have this other fatigue of the medical world, the medical runaround. So it's really tough. And I think if you can afford it, going to a functional medicine doctor can be beneficial. But at the same time, functional medicine in and of itself is kind of the same world as the medical world. I went to functional medicine doctors for years and never had any success with them. They would tell me, "Oh, you got to do hyperbaric chamber, or you got to do uh, blood transfusion with oxygen, whatever that's, I forget what it's called, but all these different things." And it's like all these expensive procedures when really all I had to do was change my diet. And that's why I'm so passionate about this, because I spent so much money. I will say that I wasted so much money on supplements I didn't need, on all this stuff that I didn't need, when all I needed was to change my freaking diet. And it makes me so mad. Like, looking back, I wish that I could tell my younger self, "Listen, girl, all you gotta do is eat high fat. Like, all you gotta do is, eat ruminant animals, and you can have everything. Like, you can literally improve every single thing, every single biomarker, every single thing." And I'm gonna be doing this for YouTube. So at the end, I know we're gonna say where to follow me, but I'm gonna be doing full biomarkers. I have the Biome kit over on my counter. So I'm gonna be testing everything from my bacteria. I've already done my vaginal bacteria. So now we're gonna test gut bacteria, oral bacteria, and blood work. Um, so I'm doing all that plus my blood biomarkers, plus I'm gonna be doing all my other metrics, and I'm gonna do 90 days of that and see if anything changes. So I'm gonna be showing that all on YouTube so that everyone can, like, follow along and see, how this actually impacts the human body on a cellular level. So you can see, like, the blood work and everything like that, because I think it's important for people to see the actual data. And then I'll also put my sleep data on there too. So you're gonna be able to see, like, my stress levels when I'm sleeping, how long I'm sleeping, all of that will be on there. So that's gonna be a video that I'm gonna be doing so that people can feel more comfortable and confident with, embracing a new lifestyle.
I think that's amazing. That's going to be some good. I'm excited to watch that and see those numbers. And what do you use to monitor your sleep?
I've been wearing this for I'll show you. I've been wearing this for years now. This is a Garmin Venue 2. I think they're cheaper now. When I bought mine, I think it was like 250. Best 250 I've ever spent. You get a free app with that. It's mainly for running. I don't like the Apple Watch because it dies really quickly. I can wear this thing without charging it for 5 days, as long as you're not running the GPS on it. I wear this for 5 days. It tells me all my data. I get all my text messages. I get everything on it. But this tracks every single thing from my respiration. Like, I can actually show you. Um, It tracks your period, so it's awesome for that because, when you go to the doctor, they're always like, "When was your last period?" It's like, "Oh god," I can just pull up my app on my phone, and I can see everything on there. It tracks your heart rate, so you can see your heart rate variability. It tracks your body battery, everything, your stress levels, all of that. So it's just all this data right here, it will track all that for you. So it tracks your
Wow.
ovulation, so if you're doing more of a natural method of birth control, you have that on here. It's really awesome. And then you can keep track of your weight if that's something you do. And then also your workouts. If you're doing any strength workouts, you can keep track of that on here. So it's really awesome. I really do like the Garmin product line. I think that they're kind of ahead of their time in the technology space. But there's also Aura rings. So if you want something wearable that's not a watch, I know a lot of people don't like watches or they think they're ugly. Get an Aura ring. Aura rings are great too.
Well, that watch is super cute, so I'll have to look into that. I used to use Fitbit, and I kind of got, I've had anxiety off and on throughout my life. And so I get anxious, like, oh my gosh, I've only got, 6,000 steps today. I need to get moving. And so then it would give me anxiety. So I'm like, okay, I've got to remove this from my life at this moment, so that I can have sanity, and just be able to focus on the things that I need to focus on. So I had to remove that. So I do love that watch. The look of it is super cute, and some of the features that it has sound
So
amazing.
you can turn off just in case anyone else is listening to this and they feel the same way because I myself am like that too. I just don't want to like I don't like my watch alerting me like, hey, it's time to get up and move. You can turn that off on the Garmin. So I think Aura Ring doesn't do it either. You can make settings to turn that off. I don't want my watch to tell me, hey, it's time to work out. Like I'll do that when I want to do that. So yeah, I'm right there with you. Like I don't pay attention to how many steps I do in a day. I know some people do, and it can be a helpful tool, but it can also be a tool that isn't very helpful. If it's affecting your mental health, it's not a helpful tool. So, if that's something that you want to turn off, you can absolutely do that, which is great.
That's nice. I don't know if Fitbit, I didn't look into it any further to see if it would allow me to turn it off, but I'm just like, I need a break. So mental break. What advice would you give someone who's recently been diagnosed with an autoimmune?
Become your own best advocate. No one in the world is going to care more about you than you. So the first thing I would do is really fall in love with yourself. Like you become your top priority. When your health is in jeopardy, um, I don't want to say like baby yourself, but realize like how important you are. This is something I didn't do early on, and I wish I really did this is um I think it's important not to blame yourself for what happened. Getting sick. It's really hard because you start to feel like, oh my God, what did I do to deserve this? A lot of people going through things like autoimmune cancer, they feel this almost like sadness. It's a grief for the life that you used to have. And especially when there's changes that, have to be made to your lifestyle. Maybe you can't do as much as you used to do, or maybe you have to take a step back and not work as hard. Whatever it may be, it is detrimental to your life. Like it has an impact on your life. So the first thing I would say is really be easy on yourself, and realize that, this is a chapter in your life and that you now have a future that you can step forward into and you get to decide how you want to move and navigate through autoimmune. And it's not easy, but really create that support within yourself. Know that you got your own back and do your own research, and really be your own best advocate. If a doctor is not treating you well, fire that doctor. I fired plenty of doctors. Early on I had a doctor who, when I first went into the lifestyle I live now, where I'm eating high fat and I'm eating, the right kind of high fats. But when I went into this lifestyle, my LDL went up a lot. So my cholesterol shot up. And he was like, I'm gonna have to put you on statins. He's like, all your blood work came back perfect. He's like, literally, your blood work is insane. He's like, everything looks so, so good. It's just your cholesterol's, messed up. And he was like, how are you feeling? I'm like, I feel amazing. I have no symptoms. I literally don't have a single symptom. And he's like, we're gonna have to either get you off what you're doing and go back to how you were eating before, or you're gonna have to go on a statin. And I'm like, F you, I will never see you again. because I've essentially reversed all the issues I was having. I had eye floaters so bad I couldn't even see in the daytime. I'd go outside and I'd be blinded by eye floaters. That all went away on this lifestyle. So I'm like, bro, I was dying. And then now I'm better. And you're telling me to go back to how I was eating when I was dying. Like, this makes no sense to me. So I fired him, never went back to see him. Nice guy, liked him as a person, but as a doctor, I'm like, you aren't aligned with what I'm doing. So I found a team of doctors who understands. They actually do nutritional research. They look into nutritional, factual stuff. And they're with the program because they see how much it's helped me, and we can talk about it. Like, person to person, we can talk about it. So I would say find your team of specialists. Don't settle for crappy care. If you feel you are being treated poorly, we are lucky and we're blessed to have access to medical professionals, but that does not mean that they're always going to be the right fit for you. I had really bad insurance when I first started this journey. My insurance was not good. So I was kind of stuck with some of these doctors that I didn't really um, what is it? There's like HMO and PPO. I'm not a healthcare person, but I had like the bad kind, like it was like not good. And health is expensive. I will say this, going to see specialists, it's not cheap. Like, when you start getting those bills in, even with insurance, I mean, my insurance didn't cover a whole lot of everything. So it's like you still have these bills, and it can be frustrating when you are newly diagnosed, and on top of that, you're not able to work much. It's hard. So be easy on yourself, and be as picky as you can with the care that you're getting, because it's really important that you have a team of supportive people who are helping you to get better. I'm not into symptom management personally. I do not want to be on medications. That's just my way of living. But a lot of people do, because they're like, I don't want to change my lifestyle. I'm happy with my lifestyle. Unfortunately for me, if I had gone down that route, I wouldn't be here today. I was extraordinarily sick. My body was completely failing. My brain, organs, everything was just under so much stress that I couldn't function at all. So my case is very severe. However, someone else may have just a very mild thing, and they're like, you know what? I don't want to change my lifestyle. It's too much work. I'm just going to go on medication. That's fine too. Whatever, at the end of the day, whatever's going to make you feel the best. I will say this though, and I think this is really important. Just because you're putting band-aids on something and covering a symptom doesn't mean that you're not incurring damage. That's what I'll say. Because here's what happens: is people go on a medication to cover up a symptom, and then they're back in the doctor's office 6 months later with more symptoms because more organs are being affected, because you're eating something that is not agreeing with your body, and is, like I said, it's building those tissues, it's building your body back up with faulty material. Your body will break down if it's built of styrofoam. Like, it's just how it goes. So whatever way you want to go with it, choose the way that's best for you, and always know you can evolve. Always know that there's options out there. Always know that there's, different things you can do out there, and keep the hope, because that's the best thing we can do, is really know that this isn't a forever thing if you don't want it to be. If you want to change your lifestyle and work really hard at fixing what's going on, and the root cause of what's going on, fixing your gut health, fixing your metabolic health, fixing your mitochondrial health, you can change your life. You can absolutely change your life. Like, I'm saying that from someone who's done the work. Like, I've gone through this, so I can say 1,000,000%. I know how bad it felt to be sick, and I know how good it feels to feel healthy. And there is no way in hell that anyone could convince me that you can't change your life. Like, you absolutely can. So just know that there's a personal power that you can cultivate, and that you can step into, where you can change your life. You can absolutely change your life. And another thing I'll say is that you weren't born this way. I mean, some people are, unfortunately, but a lot of us, we got sick in our 20s. We got sick in our teen years. We got sick in our 30s. You didn't always live this way. So in a sense, you can reverse that through lifestyle factors. So just know that that was something that was so helpful to me when I was going through this. I was like, I wasn't always this way. On my hardest days, I'd be laying in bed, the world was spinning. I had eye floaters galore. I felt like like I was dying. Literally, my head felt like it was swelling up so big. Like, I couldn't think. I was crying. I'd have bloody noses every day, like projectile bloody noses. My eyes were breaking open and bleeding. I mean, I was so sick. Um, And all I could think about in those times was I'm dying, literally dying. But I clung to the thought of I was not always this way. I was once a vibrant, healthy 20-year-old. Maybe there's something I can do to get better. And I clung to that hope for so long that eventually I got to the point where I'm at now. So that is why I'm very passionate about what I talk about on social media. Some people think I'm annoying. I really don't care. It is what it is. Like, I have a message to share. I mean, I really feel so grateful to have a second chance at life. Like, this is really, like, I don't want to cry on here, but this is the second chance at life. So I feel grateful for it. And if people think that that's over the top or whatever, I know it's helping so many people who have lost hope, who need that little dose of hope to get through their day to carry on to the next day.
Yeah. That's excellent advice, and I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I shared a little bit ago, recently I went to the doctor, and I don't have the same journey that Celia does, but I've spent lots of money, probably thousands and thousands of dollars working with functional nutrition doctors, because the Western medicine route wasn't working in my favor. There was nothing coming up that was wrong with me, and I knew I didn't feel good. And I'm still trying to get to the bottom of exactly what that is. And so, my doctor, thankfully, the Western medicine doctor I'm working with currently is very versed on nutrition and all sorts of things. So she's one of I'm just so thankful for her. And she said, let's change some things. Let's see if that helps relieve some of these symptoms that you're having. And I can attest that it has made a difference. So you are 100% right with that. You weren't potentially born this way. You can reverse. I've caused a lot of damage and trauma to my own body throughout the years in my 20s and 30s. So I could be paying for that now. It could be part of what's going on. Adrenal fatigue was another thing that I experienced, so I've gone through these things myself and, reached out to doctors and just spent a ton of money and not gotten anywhere with it. Like, I'm still not. So each day I'm still working through that same journey, even though I haven't been diagnosed with an autoimmune. Is it perimenopause symptoms? Not sure. I know too, throughout your journey, and we don't have to I don't want to turn this episode about breast implant illness, but I know you had breast implants, you've had them removed. I had breast implants for 21 years and had them removed. So with autoimmune, having a foreign device in your body is constantly fighting that. And I know when you were going through at the peak of all of those terrible things that you were experiencing with your body, you were willing to let me get these out and see if that is what's causing these issues. And I'm sure that you had a little bit of relief after. No? Oh my
So
gosh. Wow.
so
Oh my
for
gosh.
surgery, to remove them, and they had to graft my body back, you know, so it looked semi-normal. He had done the pockets really weird, so the pockets were too deep, so they had to do, like, a I looked like Frankenstein. I had ropey scars all over, it was really awful. But 9-hour procedure, and literally the day after was the beginning of hell for me. Um, I got worse, I got sicker to the point where I was so sick after getting them out, and it never went away. It was just like it was horrid. And then it was just this ongoing progression of getting worse and worse and worse. And so I have theories on the whole situation. I think that, I was already in such a fragile place. And then I went through this, anesthesia takes its toll on you. And then, getting cut open, your cortisol's elevated because your body's trying to repair itself. And when you're already in such a nutritional deficit, and when you already have so many things going wrong with your body and you're already deep into autoimmune, to add on a surgery that's really intense, your body can't repair from that. Like, it could not repair from that. Um, Getting them out was probably a blessing because I had liquid silicone, so it was literally liquid silicone, and it was bleeding into that's why my surgery was so long, is there was actually silicone in my ribs. So they're scraping the silicone out of my, like, tissues and trying to get out of my tissues. It was really grimy. Um, but I say that to say if you have breast implants in at the moment and it's not liquid silicone, so if you have gummy bear or if you have uh like the saline, I would try to fix your diet or see what you can do testing wise prior to getting them out, because if you can heal a little bit before getting them out, or sometimes people heal completely. I've actually seen girls with saline in who literally reversed their gut issues, and they reversed their they didn't reverse their autoimmune, but you know what I mean? They went into remission and they actually are thriving and they still have the same implants in. So I'm not saying implants are healthy, and I'm not saying don't get them out. What I'm saying is I wish I did not rush into it. I wish I took time to get healthy before getting them out so that when I got them out, it wasn't detrimental. I was so sick. And I'm not saying do not get yours out. Mine was a rushed emergency surgery because I had to get them out. I was so, so sick. But once I got them out, I was even sicker. So what I'm saying is there may be another reason, and most times there is another reason why someone is sick with BII. It's not just the implants. So I'm not an advocate for implants. I don't have implants now. This is just natural boobies. But I'm just gonna say, like, I just see so many women rush to get them out, and a lot of women message me privately saying, you know what, I got mine out and I got worse afterwards. And it's heartbreaking because a lot of them are left mutilated. Their bodies are all cut up, and it's not everybody, but I want to say, because a lot of these women are already suffering from health issues. The last thing I'd want someone to go through is suffering from self-esteem issues because of their body. So I think about that. I think about things. I'm very careful with what I say on social media in certain aspects because I know how it is to be going through something like this. You don't want to add fuel to the flames where you don't need to. So it's like, if you're going through that, just know, like, maybe if you're not super, super sick, maybe take a couple extra steps to see if it could be something else that you could help out, help to get better before you remove them. So don't be in a rush to remove them if you don't have to.
That's a good point, and thank you for that perspective. That's something that I hadn't even thought of, and no one has reached out to me personally with that experience that you just mentioned. So, um, I hate that you even got sicker, but you're right. Your body was not in this place, and surgery is a trauma on the body. And
Mhm.
that particular surgery, yours was a little bit more invasive, but it is a very hard surgery. I mean, the recovery for the surgery that I had, it took me probably 2 or 2.5 weeks to feel better. I
The
was still very, very
Oh, they
sore.
took the whole capsule out, the end block, is that?
Yes. So I had everything removed, and I actually tested positive for a bacterial infection in the scar tissue,
Mhm.
an implant. So they did treat me for that bacteria infection. But, what I can speak to is that after getting them, removed, I had the same ones for 21 years. The doctor didn't tell me, hey, these are going to need to be changed. Or removed at some point in time. And as my health started to decline and things were going on, I said, let me get these out. I'm going to try this and see if it works. And, unfortunately, women, it's a gamble. Is this going to be what makes me feel better? Is it not? For me, immediately, I felt this sense of well being come over me. So, besides hurting from the surgery and the recovery time of that, I felt amazing. And I feel like even though I have not fixed whatever may be going on, I am thriving. So it is much different than prior. And, for me, I decided I'm not saying it's BII. Um, you know, I don't want to dismiss anybody else's symptoms. I had a plethora of one. They could also be perimenopause related. And as you age and you've put your body through so much trauma and stress, um, with a foreign device in there, it is hard for it to operate at a high function. So that is the reason for me removing them, as well as I didn't want to have a surgery when I'm in my early 50s. If you do the 10-year, 7 to 10 year rule, or some say 10 to 15 years, I decided for me, it doesn't make sense. I don't want to spend the money on that. And I don't want to undergo all these surgeries for the rest of my life to have breast implants. Was it a hard decision? Absolutely. I mean, I have lived since I was 20 years old and I'm in my early 40s with breast implants. I had no idea what my body was going to look like after that. That's scary. You're talking a middle aged woman. It was hard. It was hard for me to swallow that. There's still times where I'm like, because there's not a lot of tissue left. I've always been into fitness. I'm a small girl, so there's not a lot of tissue, and that is hard. And clothes fit differently. Just everything looks different.
Did you
And I'm a year.
um
What'd you
did
say?
you were you saline or silicone?
I had saline, but the shell of that implant is silicone. So that is one thing to note. Now, I didn't have any ruptures that some experienced, so they were still intact, which was, I'm thankful for that. But it is a journey, and I'm a year out. I had my surgery February 9th of 2023, and so I'm a year out. And I did, before going into that surgery, another thing I will say is that I did a lot of work on the inside. With self-esteem,
Mhm.
you kind of brought that piece up. And when you're struggling and when you're down really low, that's hard to do. So I'm very thankful I was in a good place and I had really done the work. I'm a big advocate for talking to therapists. There's nothing wrong with that. So doing what you have to do on the inside to feel confident. But I get, that it's still a struggle, and I would say that I'm a pretty confident person, but as a woman, as a female, you're judged on a lot of things, the way that you look and present yourself. So it is hard as a
Well, I
female,
think
I would say.
society is very I live in Florida. Where are you located?
In Southern Indiana.
Okay, yeah, I used to live in Indiana. That's so funny. I was are you close to Oliver Winery? Or do you know where that is?
No, so I'm near Louisville, but I believe you were a bit north, like, were you around Indy area?
Yeah. That's so funny. But anyways, I'm in Florida now. Indiana's a little different. But going to Miami, everyone has the big bubble butts and the huge fake implants, and it's a different world here. It's we live in a society that really idolizes, and this is something I'm very passionate about, is not using filters on social media because we live in a society where everyone's filtered up and nothing wrong with it. If you like to do that, by all means, it's all. But personally, I just feel like I want to kind of break that stigma about, you're not okay as you are, because the truth is it's about your personality. We all want to look our best, but at the end of the day, um, your personality is gonna carry you when you're old, when you're 80, when you're 90. It's really about who we become on the inside, not how we look on the outside. So your scars don't make you any less. Your stretch marks don't make you any less. Your imperfections, as we call them, which I don't think they're imperfections, I think they're just a story of who we are, they don't make you any less. So, if you see our society and everyone's photoshopping their bodies, I'm like, F all that. Let's be real and celebrate, the fact that we can just be alive and connect with people and have conversations like this and, thrive together and help each other out. I mean, I still like all the beauty treatments. I just did microneedling for the first time 2 days ago. So I like to do these things for myself, but at the same time, the whole thing with the putting stuff in your body to be accepted, like, I really hope we can change that narrative because I think it is very harmful to young women. And do you have kids?
Yes.
Yeah.
20-year-old son.
See, you want them to grow up and be confident in themselves. And we don't have kids yet, but when we do have kids, I don't want them to ever feel like they need to get implants at 20 or 18 or, I remember being 18 and I thought I have to have implants. All the girls are doing it. And I saved up for mine and it pains me that women are saving their money to fit in or to be more attractive. It's like really, I hope that we get to a place where we can start to cultivate more of what's on the inside and how we treat people and the things that we do, to help others versus the exterior.
I love that. And when we started, I don't know if you caught, for those of you listening, that I said what I love about Celia is she's authentic. And I love what you brought up about the filters. And, I couldn't agree with you more. It has created some issues in society, and especially for the young folks. And it breaks my heart. It truly does. So I know we've shifted the conversation a little bit, so I apologize about that. But if you're listening and you're navigating an autoimmune, we hope this episode gave you some tips and tools to help you manage symptoms and know that you are not alone. Those of you listening, we'd love to hear your thoughts and experience on these topics. Celia, if you'd like to share with the listeners how they can connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am on Instagram. That's my best place to connect. I put a lot of stuff out on Instagram. My highlight reels have all sorts of information if you're ever curious and bored one day and want to go take a look. It's so I-A-M, Celia Cavalli, CELIA CAVALI. I'm sure you're going to put that in the show notes. And then on YouTube, if you search across any platform, that's my name across every platform. I'm not on TikTok. I do have a TikTok, but I never update it, so you can't really find me there. I stick to YouTube and Instagram to keep my life simple. It's all about keeping it simple. So those are the two places I'd love to connect with you. I don't always get back to all my messages, but I try really hard. So if you do send me a message, just know that, stories are the way to really connect. If you comment back a story, I usually get that right away. So yeah, I'd love to connect.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, keep it simple.
I love it. Details on how to connect with Celia will be in the show notes. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for more insightful discussions. Thank you for joining us on Balance and Bottom Lines with Rebecca. Remember, the balance between personal well-being and professional success is key. Stay tuned for our next episode. Until then, keep striving for excellence in both your personal and professional life. Thank you so much, Celia.
Thank you so much for having me, Rebecca.